You have another story in Politico today. Ken Chris told me a 3,000-word story on how reporters are starting to sour on President Obama. What are you talking about?
Well, number one, I covered the White House for the Journal and for the Washington Post before coming to Politico, and I was one of the biggest whiners out there as far as not getting enough access, not getting enough presidential interviews. So what we're trying to do is assess how much of this is just your predictable whining from reporters and how much of it is different treatment from the White House. So we had two reporters talk to a bunch of the White House press corps, especially those that have been around for a long time, and they feel it is different. They feel relations are about as bad as they've been, certainly as bad as they were during the Bush years. They feel Obama gives them very little access. They feel Robert Gibbs, the press secretary whose job it is to communicate with reporters, communicates only with a few, and that often reporters get very harsh pushback from the White House, and some feel they get frozen out if they write anything critically of this White House. And then there's definitely a sense in the press corps that the New York Times gets real blatant favoritism, that whenever there is a story to leak out, that it goes from Obama or his people to the New York Times, and that this hasn't happened once or twice, but several times, and reporters are obviously disturbed by the pattern because they feel like if the New York Times is getting special treatment, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Politico, others are not getting the same treatment. And so there is definitely deep frustration, and I think the popular perception that the White House press corps is in the tank for Obama certainly doesn't reflect their private frustrations with the Obama White House.
Pat, you obviously ran communication shop for two presidents. Is this just natural? Is there always a problem between the press corps?
There always is. As the press secretary, the White House ambassador of the press corps is ambassador of the president. But when you get something like this, it is usually a reflection of the man at the top.
You've said this before. It always starts at the top.
Yeah, I mean, if they're stiffened press guys and they're coming down hard on them and they're denying them access and they're ticked off at them, you can bet that when they go into the Oval Office, that's what they're hearing from the big man.
Because what you always did to the press corps was what the big man, the president, be it Reagan or Nixon, told you to do.
He called, Pat,
Robert,
I want you to go leak this to your friend at Time Magazine.
Robert Gibbs is not flying solo here. He's very close to President Obama.
He's very close.
And he's doing...
Probably reflecting the president's sentiment and attitudes. And I saw yesterday, the president looked kind of un-Obama, if you will, sort of angry and populist. And when he was talking about this, the Republicans blocking that. So I think you might be getting really a change in attitude on the part of Mr. Cool.
Jim, do you think, the president has not had a formal primetime press conference in more than 10 months. That's the longest of any president in more than a decade. But he has given 3 times more one-on-one interviews than either Bush or Clinton had done up until this point.
John Harwood's got them all.
That's nice. So, Jim, don't you think that's in some way, too, this White House just controlling the media in a different sort of way, or using the media in a different way?
Absolutely. I mean, if I were the president and I was trying to control the message, I would find friendly outlets and I would control where the interviews are being done, and therefore you have much more control over your message. When you have these wide open press conferences, you don't get to control what questions are answered, and you don't get to control what we're talking about on Morning Joe the next day. If you do your own interview, you have much more control over the message, and I'm sure that's the internal thinking.
Basketball with the president.
I can play basketball.
Right?
Oh no, Harry Smith. That was good.
That last press conference was the Sergeant Crowley press conference, as I recall.
Right.
Oh, was it really?
Yep, and I wouldn't want to do many after that.
The thing is, though, if you look at the president's campaign, when he was Senator Obama running, he was so controlled and buttoned down then. He'd do a lot of things on the web. This is not a president that grants a lot of access.
If this is all true, and if we're right, then it's actually a mistake, because he does his best when he goes there. We've always seen that.
I think so.
When he puts himself in the line of fire.
Just like Jim Vandehei.
Yeah. Oh, what a man.